I'm Joe Helko, Director of Community Relations for Northwestern Counseling and Support Services, and welcome to another episode of NCSS Here for You. Since 1958, Northwestern Counseling and Support Services has been providing access to high-quality services that promote healthy living and emotional well-being to the residents of Franklin and Grand Isle counties. Over the years, as the needs of the community have changed, so too have the programs and services that we make available to assist children, adolescents, adults, families, and seniors. We take our role in the community seriously and strive to provide a continuum of the highest quality services to meet the needs of individuals that need our assistance at any point in time. In this episode, we'll be discussing some of the ways that NCSS collaborates with community partners to meet the needs of individuals that are struggling with mental health challenges. NCSS is the fabric of the community with a presence in schools, law enforcement, and primary care, to name a few. By being present throughout the community, we'll be able to share the resources that are available to address those needs. Every day, our organization attempts to reduce stigma and help community members overcome their mental health challenges. It's important to note that mental health is just as important as addressing physical health to achieve well-being and get the most out of life. To gain a greater understanding about some of the ways in which we're making a difference when collaborating with community partners, I am pleased to introduce this month's guests. They are Matt Lyon, Access Case Manager, and Ron Stankevich, Family Assessment Specialist. I'd like to welcome both of you to the program this month.
Yes, Joe.
So it's really great to have you here, and we do so much in the community, and I know both of you have been involved in a variety of ways in getting individuals to understand more about our organization and the great work that our staffs do. So let's start with, first of all, many people believe that NCSS services are provided within our locations. However, 92% of the services that we provide are actually in the community. So could you share some of the organizations that we collaborate with within the community?
Sure thing. I'd be more than happy to talk about that. And first, I just wanted to say that I completely agree that mental health is just as important as physical health. I agree that. So some of the different locations that I personally work with is things like Samaritan House, CV Yo-Yo, and Martha's Kitchen. Mm-hmm. Those three community partners are the ones that I work with the most. So Samaritan House, for example, it used to be called Tim's House. I'm not sure if you're are you aware? So they are individuals that are helping individuals that are currently experiencing homelessness. So providing, a bed for them to rest their head at night and just to help get them up on their feet. Case managers to help them look for housing, to apply for benefits. It's great to be able to collaborate with them. Then you have CV Yo-Yo. CV Yo-Yo, I work with them on outreach, again, for the homeless population. And it's been, great working with them because they are all people that genuinely care about the community. Mm-hmm. And then finally, Martha's Kitchen. It's I guess you can call it a community kitchen for individuals that come from all over, just to grab a meal before they move on for the day. Yep. So as I've been involved with them, they've been able to work with us here at NCSS to help address mental health needs by providing us with, talking with them about our organization and just helping to explain what I, as a case manager, essentially could do to help support them. It's been a great way because I feel like ultimately, our goal as a mental health agency, or at least how I've seen it at NCSS, is we actively work to try to remove as many barriers as we possibly can to whether it be treatment or to assistance with things like outpatient therapy. And then this is just one of the few things.
Yeah, and again, this is something that a lot of these individuals would not have any idea a lot of these programs exist if it weren't for you being involved with those organizations.
Right. Yep, it's like I mentioned before, it's been an amazing opportunity and more than that, a privilege, because I feel as though that, alone we can accomplish so little, but with all of us together as a community, we can truly move forward as a cohesive group.
Yeah, absolutely. So with companies realizing the importance of their employees' mental health, we've been able to share resources at many wellness fairs. Can you share how we've been able to make an impact with organizations?
Yeah, we've tabled or exhibited at wellness fairs for Milan, Vermont Precision Tools, and Med Associates. Excuse me. And Med Associates was a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a chance to meet some of the management team there, they approached me towards the end of the wellness fair and asked if I would do a presentation for leadership, which was on mental health, first aid, suicide, ideation, and the signs of an individual who was struggling and what they could do about it. And I was really, really impressed with their commitment, their devotion, but by reaching out to us, they realized that mental health is very commonplace and that individuals need varying degrees of support. And so they wanted to become more educated on the signs and resources to support their employees. And there is discussion about doing a presentation like that for their entire organization, which is really, really cool when you think about it in two ways. One, NCSS, we are here for you, but also that companies have taken the stance and the approach that we really need to be proactive versus reactive because, I mean, economics aside, it's the right thing to do.
Well said.
Absolutely. And, when you do speak, though, about economics and that, it has taken a long time for organizations to understand that if they don't have a staff, first of all, their staff has to be physically well. We understand that to do their jobs. But they also have to have a good mental balance as well, because if they don't, people can miss work because of a mental health challenge as much or more so than from a physical challenge. And it's been shown that lost productivity, not only in the United States but worldwide, is in the billions of dollars because of individuals that are struggling with mental health. So
Absolutely.
for an organization, for an organization to understand that they want their employees to have a balanced life is critically important. So that was well said, Ron. Excuse me I have a frog in my throat today.
It's all good.
So let's move on to a major initiative at NCSS is to engage in the Abenaki community. And over the past 2 years, we've been invited to their wellness event. So can you speak about the importance of us being present there at this event and what we've learned more about them from being there?
I've had the privilege of working many events with Ron here. I believe we actually met at Vermont Precision Tools, right? That was
Yes.
our very first thing we ever tabled, and with the Abenaki event that we've gone to. One thing that I've always cherished about going to these different communities is just how readily they are to accept us. To accept us to come on in. Like, I truly do believe that they understand community and what we can accomplish together. And so when we are tabling at these tables, introducing all the different, the programs that we have, answering any questions that they have, they approach with a curiosity. And I think that's really important. Like, for starters, like, what is NCSS? Some people don't know like what our agency does a lot, because I think, as you mentioned before, they think we're always like all of our major work is done inside the building, but really it's outside and what the impacts we make on the community. So I guess like that's what's always struck me is the curiosity piece and just how friendly people can be. What do you think, Ron, about that?
I think you're just as friendly, if not more friendly. If anybody had any questions going in, they know everything after talking to you. I couldn't agree more. It was such a very warm and felt like social event. But there was a genuine inquisitiveness. There was a genuine desire to learn who we are and what we offer, and most importantly, developing ties and strengthening those between the two communities, and that should anyone ever need us, we're there. And it was thrilling for me in the sense that I know the very basics, but listening to a few folks who attended just to be part of it and learning their history and their tribal history. It was truly, for me, really incredible to be a student, if you will, when we were there to be teachers. But it's amazing how that flipped within about 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do want to say that, over the years when it has come to the Abenaki community, and this is going back, our organization's been in business and functioning for 65 years now, but even going all the way back to the beginning, is that there has always been this mistrust of who and what we are and what are we really at, And again, cultures are different, and the way that people accept services and all of that sort of thing can be different. We as an organization, I know, have tried to be as welcoming as possible, but maybe in some people's eyes we haven't been welcoming enough, or we've been doing the wrong thing. So I think it's critically important when we are given the opportunity to engage with them on their turf, so to speak, and to be able to talk about the resources we provide and also learn from them what some of their needs are. It's just important in building trust and building a relationship, because certainly in a perfect world, they would feel that there's no impediment to getting services from us. And that, unfortunately, is not the case right now. But the work that you two have done in being present there is another way to try to kind of break down the barriers a little bit. And, it's certainly greatly appreciated.
It's one of those things where, this one person, every time I think of the Abenaki community, her name is Grace, and she has this energy about her when, those individuals that you just kind of walk in the room, they're there, and just because they're there, the room is lighter. There's just a lot of positivity. Like, I just remember Grace and just the energy she brought in and how welcoming she was. And I think that it is critical for all of us to at least try to exude some of that same energy, because if we can all combine our talents like that, it'd be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well said. So we're also present at community events such as National Night Out, the Afterglow Music Festival, to name a couple. And these are in support of law enforcement and suicide prevention awareness, respectively. From your vantage point, why do you see that this is important to be present at these types of events?
You want to take the first stab on this?
Sure. For events like National Night Out, it's about Franklin County. It's about our community, of which we are obviously part of, and try to do our part to serve the community, but it's also a ton of fun. The third person who was with us that night, after about 20 minutes, we had no idea where she was, and then we looked over to the drums, and she was in the middle of doing a drum ensemble with a number of kids and folks from the community. And it's just really so important to say, yes, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is how we can support you. But just the simple fact that we're there participating and enjoying ourselves as much, as if not more than, say, the folks who come for the event and the giveaways. It's a really neat way to bring the community together to celebrate one another. And it's done in a variety of ways, and for us to be part of it, it's an honor and a privilege.
Yeah, I think that with special events like that, you bring, like the police force, for example, I feel there is a stigma that seems to always follow around, like, when it comes to police, mental health. I know I've heard and seen individuals say that if you seek out like counseling, maybe you're weaker of the mind, or that you can't really, figure things out yourself. But when we can bring and have these awesome events where we're all there celebrating essentially humanity, that we're all there and just showing that we are in it together, I think it helps to, at least my personal goal would be to eradicate the stigma surrounding things like that. Because, it's just one of those things where I understand that there can be several events in our history across the country, where it might be scary at times, right? But if we can show, at least especially for the Franklin County area, that when we come together and show that we can all like truly get along and do great things together, I think that's beautiful. And like the Afterglow event, I cannot express like the sheer amount. I know I brought energy up with Grace previously, but just in the audience, I felt comfortable enough because my personality is I don't mind really, going into anyone's office like, hi, my name's Matt, and but in that event, I remember Celine, my friend Celine, that was also there, a great coworker of mine, and where we were just grabbing a bunch of pamphlets, a bunch of different types of jewelry to hand out, and where I spoke to at least over 100 people that day, just going out into the community and like again talking about what we can do together and if they need something to reach out, because I think it's so important that as human beings we are innately social creatures. So if you are feeling isolated or if you need that extra help, don't look at it as a sign of weakness, but as a sign of strength that you are reaching out for that assistance. And I know for one thing that I would love to continue to be at these events to be that individual for people to reach out to if they need it. So
yeah, like with substance use or mental health, it's depending on what a person is wrestling with at the time.
Right.
It can feel like you're a failure if you are struggling and you can't fix yourself. It's oftentimes impossible to fix yourself. And something you said, Matt, I couldn't agree more with. I think any of these issues, particularly when it comes to a person's mental health, is if we ask for help, we are weak. It's absolutely the opposite. There's no greater definition of courage than to realize that you need support accomplishing A, B, and or C.
Yeah.
And to realize, and it's the same for folks who come into us, it's a recognition that I do need some support and I do need some guidance. And when that light bulb goes off, we do need to be there for individuals. And it's not just about being there, but welcomed with open arms. Because the fact that somebody is seeking help, there's already a little bit of self-blame and shame that I couldn't do it myself and I had to reach out for help. And anyone who comes from a trauma environment, it's right down to what does the lobby look like? How are you greeted when you first get there? Are you judged for what you need, or are you celebrated for who you are, so that your strengths and your interests and your talents are celebrated and utilized to support you in your journey, whatever that may be?
I knew I liked you a lot, Ron.
Well said. And, it really is. It's about a strengths-based scenario versus the opposite end of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, everybody has strengths. Everybody has things that they can offer humanity, and it's just tapping into those. But you're so right, Ron, that people need to get over the stigma of I need help. When they need help, they need to seek it. And one of the problems with mental health over the years is the fact that it's been well documented that many people wait as long as 10 years before they seek treatment. 10 years. Think about a decade of your life and all the things that took place in that decade. Yeah. And yet somebody could be struggling with deep depression or anxiety and not getting any kind of assistance when they could have, had they have just asked for help. And there are organizations like ours that can provide that help.
It's very much like you mentioned, the decade part. It's almost like they're, just weight on your shoulders, and you're just constantly adding more and more and more until eventually you can't go on. Mental health is something that needs to be taken seriously.
So one of the things we talk about versus the misnomer that everything happens in our buildings is we talk about meeting people where they're at. Can you just explain that a little more so that viewers get a true understanding that, we've talked about like various events and things like that we've been at, but the fact that we do meet people where they're at when we try to assist them in their time of need.
So meeting people where they're at for me is essentially looking at on a scale of like just an individual basis. Not every single person is the same. In my experience, like you take two people, you put them in the same room to take this class together, for example, and they're going to have a different outtake every single time. And I feel like trauma can be the same thing. We're all going to experience things differently. So when an individual walks in through our doors, in our agency, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, but I don't think we pull like a magical blueprint out and say this is the one size fits all mentality. Nothing like that.
No.
So we are, very much looking at the individual, what their challenges are, and then using a treatment plan to help that person to obtain their goals, what it is that they're looking to do, what they're looking to accomplish, skills that they're looking for, things along that nature. I know that was a long-winded, like we're meeting people where they're at, but it's looking at people at an individual level.
Yeah. And everything is individualized.
Yeah, it's definitely isn't and never should be the cookie cutter approach.
Right.
Two individuals, same age, same work situation, may both be impacted by trauma, but are going to present very differently. Someone may present as aggressive, which is a way to keep themselves safe during moments of trauma. They may be experiencing anxiety and or depression as a result. Or an individual may isolate as a way to keep themselves safe. Everyone gravitates towards what works for you at the time, and it's learned behavior. And when someone comes in, and it could be two individuals, exact same situation, same age, but with very different needs, having the same diagnosis, it again is that strengths-based perspective. First of all, finding out what brings you here today, what has led up to this, so that we can trace a little bit of history to see if there's a divining moment, or is there a connection amongst a number of situations that have occurred for the person. And so understanding their story, but more importantly, what is their goal? What is their hope? What is their interest? And that we meet them right then and there where they are. And going back to it's not getting judged for what you need. It's about being questioned for who and what you are. The strengths that an individual brings are the same strengths that have held them in good stead. To use your example, someone may have been anxious or depressed for 10 years. Obviously, there's a skill set there that is incredibly remarkable. And so how do we utilize that skill set based upon good mental health protocol to help the individual realize their goals, use their strengths to address the obstacles, and it's about walking hand in hand with the person.
Yeah.
It's not directing a person, you need to do this or else. Well, maybe that worked, maybe that didn't work, but it's about that communication one-on-one and establishing trust and respect, and it has to go both ways. Otherwise, an individual will really shut down if they feel they're being talked down to, or it's an autonomous situation. It has to be in partnership and collaboration, or it's never going to work. And we have to realize each individual is uniquely different, has their own skill set and experiences that make them unique and special just the way they are. And our job is to listen and help them reach their goals, whatever they may be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well said.
That was beautiful. Seriously.
Well, thanks.
So-
You wrote that for me. So
Yeah, right. So let's talk about addressing the mental health needs of youth and elders, and we're kind of talking on opposite ends of the spectrum, but yet both, which can have severe mental health consequences. Youth, because of being overburdened, overtaxed, anxious. Adults that are elderly that may be isolated, and all of the things that go along with that. So if we can just touch a little bit on some of the needs of both of these groups.
Sure. Would you like to start maybe with the children's side?
Sure. I do work in children, youths, and families, and I am an older American, shall we say.
Yeah.
I'm being very kind to myself here, Joe. Children, when you are young and little, just think about kneeling on the floor and looking up at someone who's 7 feet tall. I mean, that's the perspective that a little child has, is that there are giants in my room, and I need to do what they say and go where they tell me to do in order for me to be taken care of. But when you look at the CDC's social determinants of health, families may be dealing with homelessness or multiple residences, food insecurity, transportation, childcare, employment, in addition to perhaps physical or mental health concerns. And there could be substance use, there could be blended families, a whole variety of things that the average American family deals with. But children do not have any power, they do not have any control. And without that control, and if the adults in their life are dealing with issues that take them out of the present and back into themselves, focusing on the past or the future, children can feel neglected and overwhelmed, as you said. Yeah. And our job really is to, again, it's about meeting the client where they're at regardless of their age. And using our skill set in a way that will help the child to feel safe, working in concert with the family, again, to realize family goals, because a 5-year-old doesn't walk in the door by themselves. They come with mom, dad, or grandma and grandpa, or a guardian. And our hope is to learn from the adults, but also, most importantly, get to know the little child so that we understand where they are at this particular moment in time. So it's not just about an assessment of the parents. The most important person in the room is the 3, 4, or 5-year-old.
Sure.
Yeah, and with the adult side, just to kind of bounce off a little bit, the different struggles that the children go through, right? That then carries on into adulthood. You know, like you were mentioning the isolation aspect to it, and what I've noticed is a really big, hard spot is that a lot of the individuals that I'm currently helping to serve or have helped to serve is that trust, the mistrust of, walking on in. I had this one individual essentially say, what are you trying to sell me? Like what is going on here? The different, just even as far as signing forms can be really difficult at time, and rapport is massive. It's so important to be able to meet your people where they are at and not to push specific buttons, to just keep pushing the same topic. So for me, I believe that once you can establish trust with an individual, you can really start to look on into the history, as you mentioned, even with the children. It's the same exact. It just doesn't matter the age or anything. It is always about what have they experienced, what have they gone through, what are the traumas that they are currently facing in that moment. What can we address right now? Whether it be short-term goals, long-term goals, and making that a part of their treatment plan. If I always like mentioning whenever I first meet someone, when I'm sitting across the table for them, I said, if I could hand you a magical wand and you could flick it in whatever way you wanted, and then your biggest problem was able to disappear, what would it be? And, of course, it's different per person, but it usually stems from, unfortunately, insecurity, with housing, just childcare, as you mentioned, and just the depression that they have gone through the years and how they manage that as an adult. So, yeah, meeting them where they're at and then helping them get connected to the resources at that point is so beneficial. Because sometimes, I've seen in my course of, just being in the field, unfortunately, sometimes I feel like people's voices are not heard as effectively. It's if they have a mental health, challenge, or if they're working through something, it's harder than a case manager calling and saying, hey, I'm helping to represent this individual. I'd like to help try to get them services.
Okay, well, I want to thank both of you. I can't believe our time is up. But I want to thank my guests, Matt Lyon and Ron Stankevich, for sharing their insights on making a difference when collaborating with community partners to address the stigma associated with mental health and sharing available resources. I also want to thank you, the viewer, for spending time with us again this month. You can learn more about NCSS and all of our programs and services by logging on to ncssinc.org. I'm Joe Helko, and I'll be back next month with another episode of NCSS Here for You.